our latest trip to Holly Grove. So I'm going to talk a little bit how the history of how Park Plaza got involved with Holly Grove, and how we came to minister to them. And then Bruce Acton's going to get up and talk a little bit about his family and how they got involved this year. And then Brett Powell is going to talk to us about his time there at Holly Grove. So most of you know, or I don't know if most of you have that date ingrained in your mind, but Hurricane Katrina landed August 29th, 2005 on the state of Louisiana and mostly in New Orleans. And most of us got an opportunity to see it on TV. We got to see the waters rise, and we got to see the destruction and what those people were going through. And it was heartbreaking. I mean, to see the destruction that was going there and what was happening to the Crescent City. So like any, I was a newcomer to Park Plaza at the time, and as what generally happens with newcomers, Ed Mosier taps you on the shoulder and says, "Hey, I need your help. I need you to get involved." And that's what happened to me. He knew where I was from, and he said, "Look, I need you to help me organize a trip down there to Louisiana to see if we can help them out." And so that's how the first trip happened. First trip happened about a month after the hurricane occurred. And we were able to get a pretty large group of people. I think we had about 30 or 40 that went down the first trip. And we were able to head down to New Orleans. The church was very supportive of that trip. I remember we were able to get lots of supplies and things that we were able to take down in the church buses. And so we took the church buses, we took our own vehicles, and we headed down. And that time, after Katrina had happened, you weren't allowed in the city. You weren't allowed anywhere near where those houses were affected. So we had to be at Tammany Oaks Church of Christ in Mandeville. And in Mandeville, that's about 20 minutes north of town. And the story, it's God's will, and I think God set this up, that Tammany Oaks was a brand new church. It was getting ready to open the next week. And there was Hurricane Katrina. So Tammany Oaks became a distribution center. It was one of the only churches allowed to be a distribution center. And so there was trucks and vehicles of all the supplies that the people of the U.S. and probably all over the world were sending to that area. And they were tasked with getting that material back out to the people of New Orleans and into the best way we can. So that was generally the bulk of our first trip, was helping organize that distribution center there in New Orleans. Now, we also were able to help out because we have great members like Gary Dillahunty and Hugh Cooper, who were tree smiths, and they could get out there with a chainsaw and get a lot of work done. And so a group of us went out and were able to get out in the areas where they allowed us to go ahead and trim trees as well. And so it was amazing to see and to drive around that area to see 40-foot pine trees chopped in half. To see all of the trees in the area are just permanently blown in one direction because of the gale force winds that Hurricane Katrina happened. So it was a sight for all of us to see what little we got to see that first trip. And so it kind of moved us, and we knew that we were going to end up coming back, and we did. But, like any good trip, we have our fun. When you go on a trip with Gary Dillahunty, you're going to have some adventures. I hear the giggling. Everybody knows Gary. I think we buried his bobcat in the swamp during one part of the trip. We tore the skin off of Hugh Cooper's hands because Gary was in the tree cutting down a limb, and Hugh decided to hold on to the rope so that the branch wouldn't fall on the house. We were having to improvise because we didn't have really big tools at the time. And then we got questioned by the police because there was a house fire a couple of doors down whenever we were there, and they were wondering what in the world we were doing with chainsaws cutting down trees. So it's always an adventure with Gary Dillahunty. And so we had a good time. We made some good memories and there. So, and over the next few years, Jeff, if you want to go ahead and put those slides up, we were able to go back, and we went back plenty of times. And as you can see here, there was a lot of work to do. You can go to the next slide. That's mold all through there. And so we transitioned from helping out the distribution center to doing what we call mucking. You can go to the next slide. And we would go in these houses and we would muck them out. And basically what we would have to do is we would tear everything out but the studs and the brick. And so we had to tear up bathrooms. We had to tear out sinks, and when they would leave refrigerators, it was not the best smelling thing you've ever smelled. And so it was hard work. I mean, you're talking about Louisiana with the heat, with the humidity. You're trying to wear a respirator because you're worried about the mold. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. We made some great friends. We met some beautiful people from the state of Louisiana. Everybody who we were able to help at that time was very gracious for the work that we were doing, and it meant a lot to us. We had so many people that went on this trip, and we were able to keep. And if you go one more slide, I think you see. Let's see what the next slide. Yeah, that slide. Some former members, T. Sanders, and who's the other? There are the Brookmans right there, right in front. And look, Donna Milliken. Donna Milliken got in the middle of it. I mean, she got in the middle of it and got dirty with the rest of us. So it was a really good trip. We made some awesome friends. But over the next 2 or 3 years, as we continued to go back, there was less and less work for us to do. And then at the end of that time, with the help of Clint and Amy Emerson, who had been members of Carrollton Church of Christ in the past, we were able to transition from demolition and mucking to rebuilding. And that's how our interactions and our relationship with Holly Grove started. Clint and Amy had friends and had been at Carrollton Church of Christ when they were both there in school in New Orleans, and they had a love for the city, they had a love for that church, and they helped us have this relationship with Carrollton as they were going through the process of rebuilding. They were trying to figure out what they were wanting to do. And it's amazing that Carrollton had the thought process of not only rebuilding their own church, but in the middle of all that, we're going to plant a church. And that church plant was Holly Grove. And it's been awesome to see where that church has come from, to see pictures of us when we started going to Holly Grove to now, to during the summer to see these kids, to have the relationships we have. It's been amazing. So Bruce is now going to come up. Oh, Brett's going to come up first. All right. So Brett's going to come up and talk about his involvement and the team involvement this year at Holly
Grove. Alrighty, I'm Brett Powell, as Brent said. As one of the few teens that went on the trip, I was asked to talk about it and what I did. It's not my first trip going down there. It's probably my fifth, and you guys saw Brent get emotional towards the end of that, and he has good reason to, because you don't go down there just to serve. Those people touch you. And in ways that you can't imagine, God works through them and you. So I was there with Jamie Simmons, one of the youth ministers. We went down with him and his wife, along with Matt Wilkerson and Carrie Blakemore, a kid from Contact. And we weren't sure what we were doing. Amy told me that I was going to be watching kids. That changed as soon as I woke up the next morning, where Gary told me that I would be helping with trees, helped take down 2 trees, and then Clint walked up to me and told me I was going to go paint a house. I wouldn't have changed that for anything, because I got to work with Randy and Steve for the first time and really got to know them, and helping paint the Edgerson house really did change my perspective on a lot of things. I'm going to read a verse, and it says, from Hebrews 6:10, it says, God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown him as you have helped his people and continue to help them. And I feel like it's not that God's not going to forget that, but he knows you helped them, but I don't think he's going to forget them either, because he knows that they helped you. And I'm so glad that I was given the opportunity to go down there and to serve and to be served. These trips aren't anything without the people that run and help make them happen. In the youth group, we have these 5 principles, and it's serve, go, lead, praise, and there's another one that I can't remember, but you really see those in people like Amy and Clint and Randy and Coach Trimble and all the people that go down there to help, because they do lead and they do serve and they praise God in everything they do. And I'm just so fortunate to have gone. I really am. Getting to work with all of them is one of the greater things I can do in my life. Bruce, are you gonna get up and talk? Yes.
Amy messaged us this afternoon. I'm filling in for Jerry Freed, so bear with me. I'm probably not going to be near as eloquent as Jerry could have been. I got to spend some time with Jerry yesterday, so I know that he's got some sick kids to deal with. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Bruce Acton. Cindy and I have been part of Park now for quite a few years. We attend the Jinx branch. Our Holly Grove story started really back in January when the SFE program started, and video was played, and a light kind of went on in both of us and said, you know, we really need to get involved. Those of you that know, we've got a 17-year-old daughter, and we try to get her involved more and more in activities, and Cindy said, you know, maybe we need to get involved in a mission trip. We're talking about this on the way up here, and not sure if it was the same day. Possibly, probably knowing how God works, it probably was the same day. Cindy walked over, gave Megan a hug like she normally does. Megan says, hey, we're going on a mission trip over spring break to New Orleans. Cindy being Cindy said, well, we're going to go too. You know, I didn't know at the time. And I walk over, it's like, we're going to New Orleans. I'm like, well, okay, we need to, all right. You know, I listen most of the time. Making a long story short, about 10 days before the trip was going to go, we were going to leave for the trip. the devil said, you know what, you guys aren't going to go. Had some unplanned for vehicle expenses that started out as a minor expense and turned into about a $1,200 expense. Cindy texted Amy and said, you know, we're probably not going to be able to go. We've kind of come across a financial situation, and Amy doesn't take no for an answer. I don't know how many of you guys have dealt with her on a no is not something that apparently she really responds to well, because, you know, Cindy texts me back and says, well, we're going. I'm like, okay, 10 minutes ago we weren't going, now we're going. Long story short, Mitch Wilburn pulled out. He wasn't able to go, so God in his infinite wisdom sent Cindy and I in his place. Don't know what he's thinking there. Maybe one of these days we'll figure it out. That being said, Sowing for Eternity and what this church does, and we've been here for all of them now, it allows for those situations to be overcome, because this church focuses on missions. And because it does, God focuses on this church to allow people like Cindy and I to go. On the way down there, and this was our first mission trip ever. On the way down there, I'm trying to get a handle on, and I'm prepared because I've talked to people. You know, you're going to go down, you're going to be blessed. And I'm thinking, nah, not me. I'm not going to let him bless me more than I bless somebody else. I'm not going to let it happen. I've already heard about how these mission trips work, and I know how they work, and I'm not going to let that happen. A couple hours in, I was like, I'm sorry. You know, we'll get to figure this out. You know, I get to spend some time with Troy Tabor and Alan Trimble, and we build a rocking frog that you probably saw Henry a while ago rocking on it. No directions, no instructions, and we just kind of make it happen. I don't know if you guys, there's a picture somewhere in all these pictures, and it's a pair of post hole diggers underneath a spring. And then if you look really closely, you'll see a garden rake, and not the big garden rake, but the little garden rake. That was our leveling kit for that frog, to let that thing go, to let it set. And I can promise you that our grandchildren will be rocking on that frog on mission trips, because there's about 10 foot of concrete holding that thing in. Alan Trimble, being a school administrator, looks at things from a whole different perspective. One of the things I did want to share tonight in my 5 to 7 minutes, so somebody wave a hand when I'm getting close, because I can stand here and tell you guys all night long about what this means to me and my family. Our 17-year-old daughter made friends on this trip that she knew these people, she knew the kids, but she was able to relate to them on a different level through service. And for us, that means so much to know that she now has a whole new path that she can follow or be involved in because of going on this trip. One thing a couple other things I want to share is God will use you, and I don't want anybody to sit there and think that God can't use me. I don't have any skills. I don't have any talent. He took a Creek County kid, me, sent him to New Orleans. I'm down there working on a frog, laying some mulch, cutting some boards. Not too difficult. Angela, who is Charles's wife, who is the preacher at Holly Grove, we put in a little garden in a boat, and it's a small garden. And Angela comes up and goes, "This is great. I've wanted a garden. Always wanted a garden." She goes, "I would really love to have a community garden like they have up." And she names the street. When we were down there, didn't know street names. We had directions as in, go to the busy street, take a right, go to the next busy street, take another right, and it's right there. That was the directions we got most of the time from everybody. But I did see the community garden. And, I told Angela, I was like, we can do that. And she said, "Well, we don't have enough room. That's a whole lot." And I was like, "Yeah, but, we can do this with some boards and some dirt and some containers, and you can grow whatever you want to grow." And she says, "Well, when you come back down here next year, you can do it. And at the time, we had kind of talked about going again, but at the time I realized that that's why God puts people in places. He takes what you can do, or what you know how to do, or what you think you know how to do, or what you're willing to do, and He will use that. I can't wait to see what becomes of this garden. I've already got 3 or 4 pictures from her through Facebook, but I can't wait to see what they turned the little garden we built into. And then I can't wait to see what He does with the garden that we're going to build them next year, and see what we're going to do then. Because that is a community that seriously is in need of community. And the more community that they can get, then we're all going to be better served. I'll leave you with this, everybody says that and thinks that mission trips happen somewhere besides here. Mission trips happen every single day, in every way, and it can happen next door and across the street in your own town. And when you step out of your comfort zone and you step out of what Mitch referred to the other day as the safety of our pew. This is our pew, and this is where we sit, and here we go. And when you step out of that comfort zone and you step out of the safety of that pew, you guys would be amazed at what God can do with you to serve others, and then how blessed you'll be in return. Thank you for listening.